Good day to all viewers. This is our video presentation about the softball history. I am Shaira Villanueva, the leader of Group 3, with Relota, Meldred Zamora, Benjielyn Ocampo. Then please keep on watching and learning. Thank you. Softball is a bat and ball sport played between two teams of 10 players. It's a direct descendant of baseball, although there are some key differences. The softball are larger than the baseball, and the pitches are thrown underhand rather than overhand. Softball is played on a smaller diamond than in baseball. Despite the game's name, the standard softball is not so. In fact, it's harder than a baseball. Softball is played between two teams on the larger field, with 9 or 10 players from one team on the field at a time. There are 4 bases on infield: first base, second base, third base, and home plate. Near the center of this square is the pitcher's circle, and within the circle is the rubber, a smaller rectangular area. Softball facts. The game of softball is similar to baseball, but it is played with a larger ball and on a smaller playing field. Softball was invented in Chicago, Illinois in 1887 and was originally an intersport, although it was known by various different names in the beginning. It finally got its official name of softball in 1926. Then in 1933, a softball tournament at the Chicago World's Fair prompted a lot of interest in the game. That same year, the Amateur Softball Association of America was founded. Today, the Amateur Softball Association of America governs softball in the United States and also sponsors annual sectional and softball World Series championships. Prior to 2013, the International Softball Federation regulated the rules of play in more than 110 countries. When the World Baseball Softball Federation was formed in 2013, they took over this role. And these are the other interesting softball facts. The game of softball came from George Hancock. He is credited as the game's inventor and the inventor of the undersized bat and the ball. The name softball was coined by Walter Hankinson in 1926 at National Recreational Congress meeting. The first rules of softball were published in 1999. Softball has been called indoor baseball, playground softball, mash ball, and kitten ball. Softball has been referred to the ladies' baseball because it was generally played by women.
Why do they call it softball? Softball is called in softball because originally the ball was soft, even when the soft was created in 1887. The name softball was first introduced and approved in 1926 by Walter Hankinson in the National Creation Congress meeting. But before it called it softball, there is so many names to call it before they came up calling it softball. Indoor baseball called as softball because it developed for baseball players to be played inside during winter. That's why they generate the name. New names pop up for indoor baseball and many of them date back to 1895 and the outdoor games organized by Lewis Robert. Names such as kitten ball, lemon ball, and diamond ball were born. It was late as 1926 when the name softball was first introduced by Walter Hankinson for the YMCA in a meeting of the National Creation Congress. After that, the specialty in 1930s, the name softball was spread across the United States and America, and it was now the new and proper name for the sport. This is the most accepted theory of how softball and its name were born. However, there are some of other theories, and next popularity theory is related to baseball's influence.
Who and why invented softball? George Hancock. Softball began in 1887 when George Hancock, a reporter for the Chicago Board of Trade, invented indoor baseball. By spring of 1888, The game had spread outdoors. It was originally called either mush ball, kitten ball, or indoor baseball, but by the 1920s, it had acquired the name of softball. What is the purpose of playing softball? The object of the game is to score more runs, points than the other team by batting or hitting a ball into play and running around the bases, touching each one in succession. The ball is a sphere of light material, covered with leather or synthetic material. The history of softball in New Zealand dates back to 1935 when the game was first played as a recreation by visiting American sailors.
Year 1887, the creation of softball. The game of softball was introduced on Thanksgiving at a Harvard-Yale football game. After the football game, the player placed a bet and an indoor game of baseball started. But the ball was soft and did not require gloves. As a result of this game, George Hancock wrote down a list of rules and a big softball and a bat that had rubber tip on the end. Year 1889, the field. Indoor baseball or softball had become very popular in the late 1880s. By winter time in Chicago, this was a way to keep in shape for the baseball player because it could be played inside. Thus, a winter league was formed. The softball was 10 to 20 inches in diameter. A fireman Lewis Rubber needed something to keep his men busy, so he marked a small field by this station. The smaller field would ensure by more action on offense than baseball. He decided to limit the game to 7 innings. Year 1895. Girls can do what boys can do. Softball was introduced to girls through a high school. The first organized women team was made in Chicago at West Division High School. This was important because the only sport girls really played was field hockey and rowing. This showed a little more independence for women. Year 1926, softball. As this sport was getting more popular as the year went on, it spread all over the Midwestern United States. Part of Canada even started playing these sports. Everyone seems to follow the same rules, but the only difference was no one called it by the same name. People were calling it diamond ball, mush ball, and pumpkin ball. Walter Hackanson officially made this term softball as a National Recreation Congress meeting. Year 1933, Official Association. After a successful tournament where 55 teams competed from around the United States, one of the founder of the tournament thought it was time to have real regulation to follow. They set rules for different age groups. Kids would have smaller balls than adults and teenagers. The field size varies between fast pitch and slow pitch. 1982, the College World Series. In Omaha, Nebraska, the College World Series was played. The series was a total of 32 teams of 8 different regions. The two finalists were UCLA versus Fresno State. The winner ended up being UCLA. Year 1996, Olympics. In the World Olympic, softball had been entered as a medal event. The U.S. women's team had won all the events, and this was when the popularity of the sports increased. Then, unfortunately, softball was dropped as a sport in the Olympics. Year 2004, the Women Pro Fast Pitch Softball League formed 4 pro teams. And later that year, they created a World Cup for softball so the team could go against the best in the world. Once softball was taken out of the Olympic, this was their way of still being able to compete against each other. Year 2012, the 117th meeting of the International Olympic Committee held in Singapore in July 2005 voted to drop softball and baseball as Olympic sports for the 2012 Summer Olympic, but will be back in the 2021 Summer Olympics in Tokyo. Year 2015, the National Women's Softball Association has 113 member countries. It has become very popular in the United States. Over 25 million people play. It has impacted many people's lives.